are you, and why are we sitting at on a step in this opera house at 7,000 feet in Colorado? What are we doing here? Why did you bring me here to speak today?
Well, my name is Doug Pagitt, and we have organized a group of progressively minded Christian people who want to see a different outcome in our faith and civic life. So we're organizing ourselves together in this meeting for encouragement, for aspiration, and for plotting and scheming goodness.
And Doug, what is your background? I know you, but some of the people who watch this may not know who you are. How did you cut your teeth? You know, we're trying to oppose Donald Trump, get Democrats elected, re-identify Christianity with something sane. How do we get here today?
Yeah, I'm a 51-year-old white middle-class male. And the group of people that I social identify with in so many other segments of our society had a lot to do with the election of Donald Trump. I'm also a Christian. I'm progressively minded evangelical. And evangelicals, the people that reared me up in the faith, had a lot to do with the election of Donald Trump. And that's not something I wanted to see happen. And so I'm doing my part to create the kind of outcome in the world that I want to see in politics, faith, and civic life.
And Heather, we were talking a minute ago about your own coming out as a member of a well-known evangelical family, and you've come out as part of the gay community, the queer community, the women's community that's very, very far from your white evangelical background. And you're sitting here next to Doug, and you're here at this conference too, and tell me why.
You know, I get really excited about reimagining how we engage our faith and advocating for things that I think really are core to our faith. And also, I'm here because I really believe in not just becoming something that is antithetical, but also becoming an invitation that is contagious to the background that I come from. And being somebody whose identity carries a lot of meaning and weight within the circles of both evangelical and progressive, and wanting to just be authentically engaged and use my voice to speak a new language and to carry a new message that I think has a tremendous amount of pulse that goes beyond this election, though I think is relevant to this presidency as well.
And Doug, how do you think that kind of statement strikes you? And are you finding other people that are talking the way Heather's talking?
Yeah, personally, I mean, I spend my life hanging around a lot of people who do this, a lot of other goodness conspirators and constructionists, people who want to make and create communities.
Tell me a little bit about the group that you put together that's actually sponsoring this event we're at here. And how people can get in touch with us and what this is all about. Just give me a thumbnail for someone who...
Yeah, this particular group is a group that operates under the banner Common Good Christians. And that shouldn't be a shocking statement, but it so often is, especially for progressively minded Christians in the United States and other parts of North America. It's a group of people self-identifying. There are no rules to being in. There's no boundary to keep you out. There's no litmus test that you have to pass. If you find yourself being someone who wants to see goodness and the common good out of our faith, and even because of our faith, and that's something that I've really appreciated about Heather, is that we're the kinds of people that don't want to bring about goodness in spite of our faith. It's because of it, and
how do people get in touch with, involved with, and for people who are outside who know nothing about the evangelical world, should they take any hope from this that a few of those white evangelical voters that put Trump in office as the single biggest voting bloc he had, are some of them going to peel off and listen to you, or is this a hopeless cause?
Well, I've been trying to talk with evangelicals for 25 years about a better aspiration and a better way to live our imaginations and lives in the world. So I'm not entirely sure that the next 36 months is going to be the time when other evangelicals are going to reconsider and wake from their slumber. But I do think the time is coming, and the clock is ticking. And yeah, I do think that there's an awful lot of people who realize, not only in the election of 2016, but in a whole lot of the other ways that we've engaged in the last 50 years, that we've been swapping out a birthright for a bowl of porridge, one might want to say.
You know, essentially, when you look at the coming election, the blue wave, hopefully all the rest of this, do you have any wisdom on why it was that the evangelical white vote was so solidly behind Donald Trump? It just seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, I have a lot of ideas. I think that social issues became really important to a lot of evangelical Christians, and they long ago decided that they didn't think that politics was the place where they would put their faith hope, and said, I don't really mind if my faith is not carried by my politicians. I just want them to do the one thing that politicians do, which is to pass legislation. And for a long time, they've been setting up this binary and have been willing to live in it. The thing that seems so shocking to so many of us is how hypocritical it seemed during the Obama years. That then there was this demand that the president be a certain kind of evangelical to fit their status, and now when their agenda is being advanced, it's not. And part of the reason that I stay engaged in the evangelical and Christian conversation is I think there's actually a calling for a much different kind of an agenda, and I want to see a different kind of agenda around the world in the United States as well. And whenever you're in an argument with people about how you want to see the future, you're not going to win every one of those. And some other people that I know are highly, highly encouraged by the election of Donald Trump. And I'm working really hard to understand those people, because it's not coming naturally to me. So I'm engaging in a lot of conversation with them to try to see how it is that this can feel like such good news.
Have you managed to change any minds?
I've been trying to have my own mind changed into an empathic understanding of why people who otherwise seem they would never be supportive of such things have. So at this point, it's my mind that I'm trying to change, and that's coming along. And I think only once I feel comfortable enough that I can really understand will I be hopeful that my words, that my content, that my input could change their minds. But we'll see.
Doing here in Ouray?
I'm exploring some creativity around ideas I have for what church could be in the future.
And it seems to me this conference is people who have gathered who are disturbed by the presidency of Donald Trump, that take over the Republican Party by right-wing evangelicals. You share a background with me. We're both sort of from evangelical royalty. You are the granddaughter of somebody who was a famous evangelical. I am the son of a famous evangelical. Tell us a little bit about that connection.
Yeah, so my family has been in the evangelical world for a long time in the famous spectrum. My grandfather is Chuck Swindoll, and that has been a significant part of my identity, as I know it has been for yours too.
Yeah, and basically you have moved from what to what? Tell me a little bit about your journey.
You know, I think in a lot of ways I've moved towards becoming more human, is the most honest way that I can say it, and that includes engaging the humanity of my family and reimagining what that is. And so I don't know that I have converted so much from labels, though I have found a lot of labels unhelpful, but I have converted more towards the core of what I've even been fascinated with in the Jesus story all along, which is what connects us and what causes people that shouldn't love each other to love each other.
How do you see that in reference to the fact that you come from what would be identified as a white evangelical family of exactly the kind that produced legions of Trump voters in the last election, and what are you doing about it?
It's a very good question. I think I'm advocating for how we can change all the disconnection in our country. My background is the psychology and theology realm, and so when it comes to political advocacy, I get really interested in being in spaces like I was invited to do an interview on Denver Conservative Talk Radio. And if I'm honest, I'd never listened to Denver Conservative Talk Radio before, but I sure loved being invited to a space where, as a queer identifying woman, it's very amazing that I was invited, and to talk about things like mental health in our world today.
What was it like, just to interrupt that, not go by too fast, the identity you've just given yourself, what was it like coming out from the family that you're in?
Coming out from the family that I was in?
From as someone as part of this evangelical, white evangelical conservative royalty, and then you identify yourself as a queer woman. How's that all play?
You know, I think it plays as it plays for every human. I just, at moments, felt like I was up against the evangelical church rather than my family because of what my family represents. And that led towards a lot of isolation and fear. And I think on the other side of it all, the thing that's fascinated me most is it's invited me towards more coming out experiences. Because in a lot of ways, the coming out experience as a queer woman speaks to the human experience of whatever we are coming out from an old system of belief to this realization of this new identity or this new way of seeing the world, which in a lot of ways is, I think, the work that you're doing, Frank, and how we are inviting people that are part of my mother tongue, that white evangelical world, towards reimagining and also towards owning significant aspects of the wake that has been left. And so in a lot of ways I'm dedicating my life towards creating a new wake and recognizing that my background has a lot to share and that my personal identity has also a lot to share of what that has been like.
How may I atone? I ask myself these questions silently and inwardly. How may I atone for helping to poison America with certainty addiction? How do I defend my grandchildren against the religious rights juggernaut I helped create? How do I reject what my parents stood for, fundamentalist fanaticism, and yet honor the love they gave me? How can I help my grandchildren stumble upon the goodness of life before they're sold towering mounds of brain-damaging garbage? How do I help save the world? And what kind of deluded messianic fool am I to believe that this is even possible?